So, Parth, what have you been eating?
Thanks for asking, Trent. I
It's nice
just
to
had.
see you.
Oh, you're too sweet to me.
Settle down. All right, proceed.
Okay. I had spaghetti and eggplant parmigiano, if you will.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, our Italian accents tend to come out whenever, Italian cuisine is discussed. But I
It's
think
how it's how they talk.
who prepared it?
My dad and my brother made it yesterday, so this was reheated, if you will.
Microwaved?
Well, the eggplant parmesan, like the eggplant parmesan part of it, was microwaved, and then we boiled some new spaghetti.
A big problem I have in my life since I've started living alone is that whenever I lived with my parents, if I was about to put something in the microwave, like no matter what it was, I would ask them, and for some reason, as people who've been on Earth for 50 years, they knew exactly. And now that I'm out on my own, I have no idea how long to put these things in the microwave for. Like,
Yeah.
some things are 1 minute, and some things are like 4 minutes, and some things are between. Who's right? Like, my parents, that's who.
It's a scary world out there.
Sometimes I call them on the phone, and I'm like,
Do you actually?
what do I do? Well, I still need to microwave food. Who else would I call? My landlord? Or like...
Or I mean, you could just do the trial and error
The trial
on
of
your
the
own.
Chicago 7.
Yeah, you could trial the Chicago 7 your food.
And that's a segue into the fact that we are a podcast. Parth, what have you been eating?
Oh, thanks for asking, Trent. I just had some spaghetti and eggplant parmigiano, if you will. So, Trent, what have you been eating?
Thanks for popping the question. My cornerstone of attempted health in high school was, do you know, like the little like grenades of like naked smoothies?
Sure.
So my parents gave me those year after year, and they were just like, don't look at the label. And because...
Like the word naked was too much?
No. As in, if I looked at the amount of like added sugar, we
Okay.
we couldn't live in the facade that it was healthy.
Yeah,
And-
you couldn't, in good conscience, say that you were, eating healthy.
Yeah, so
drinking.
I had that. Well, I had one of those today because it's a hard habit to break. And I also had a rice cake with some peanut butter on it because I guess if it's bland and it tastes like nothing, it must be good for you,
Speaking of bland things, let's cut to something that's not bland at all. In fact, very cool.
Our program.
Cue the intro. That was good,
Nice.
right?
Sure.
How about you bring us back in?
All right, you ready?
I feel like you never do.
I never do. May
I want to hear your voice, Trent. Please bring us back in.
Welcome back to Craft Services, the podcast, our show, where we talk
true.
about the movies. Each week, we pick a film we like and we interview someone who worked on it. This, Parth, I have an
No, you
announcement.
keep going. I'm keeping this all in.
Spider-Man Week is among us. Am I wrong?
No, I would say you're very correct.
So we interviewed the art director, Steve Arnold. Whew! Did you enjoy it, Parth?
I thought this was a great interview.
Yeah, we talked Spider-Man. We talked Fear and Loathing. What else was discussed? There was
We talked
Finch-
Maltese Falcon.
Yes, we did. He showed us his Maltese Falcon replica off air, so we're sorry.
You'll be able to see it in the eventual Instagram post for when this episode gets uploaded.
All right, but don't tell anyone. It's a little secret.
It's just between us.
The humble viewers of the show.
Speaking of which, should we let the humble viewers listen to this interview, or should we just be like, no, we'll keep it to ourselves?
Steve Arnold, Spider-Man's art director, is much smarter, much better, much cooler, much calmer, much more collected than us, and his things are much more insightful. So let's go to him, right?
All right, let's. Yeah. I think we should just
Let's,
cue the interview.
let's give it away to Steve. He deserves it. He worked on Spider-Man, goddammit. Does that mean nothing to you, Parth?
Hello, and welcome to our interview with Steve Arnold. He's worked on many projects you have probably heard of, such as Forrest Gump, Unbreakable, and Mindhunter. He was also the supervising art director for our film today, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure.
So we like to start off our interviews by just asking what got you introduced into the film world and how you got started in the industry.
A little bit of a circuitous route. I was a design major for theater when I was in college, did scenery for theater productions and things like that. And when I was in grad school, I was back in Pittsburgh at Carnegie Mellon University. And the head of the design department came to me one day and he said, I'm doing this small movie. It's a television movie. And since he was a professor, he didn't have time to devote his entire day to it. He said, would you be my assistant and help me out on the little movie? And if you do this, I will give you credit. You don't have to come to class for this spring semester. And on top of that, the company is going to pay you. And I said, cool, I'll do it. And like a lot of things in Pittsburgh, it was a fairly small market of people who did film and television commercials and things like that. And so once I got on a crew list, then I just started getting calls after that for small films, commercials, a variety of different things. I still was thinking I would ultimately go to New York and still stay in theater, but theater does not pay very well, and it's a tough business. And although I loved it, I just kind of stayed in film and ended up getting some pretty good sized projects. Mississippi Burning being one of them, and then a few little things in Pittsburgh. And then I finally decided I'm going to end up in California. I might as well just go there and get it over with. So I got in my little car and drove to California, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, we talked with Stephen Tobolowsky, who was in Mississippi Burning, so that
yes.
A nice little connection.
Yes.
So when you got to California in your little car, what was your first major project you worked on there, and what was your position?
So I was lucky, I guess. I didn't know anybody really. I knew I had a few names of people. I went for an interview, and this was about 6 days after I arrived, and I was told that, well, they don't really have a position for anybody. They were just being polite, talking to me. But they said, talk to this other person. He's going to have he's got a job. And I started on General Hospital at the very bottom of the ladder, just being a set designer there. And I worked for 6 months until another Alan Parker movie came along, and I never went back to daytime television. Gladly.
We were wondering, because you've worked in a few different positions, if you could explain the difference between a production designer, an art director, and a set designer.
Yes.
And just what the hierarchy of that is.
Yes. So generally in the old days, back when there was a studio system, the very bottom level in the art department was somebody who basically just ran blueprints. And they would have a big room of set designers, kind of either architecturally trained people or people who had, had a background in drafting. And And so the blueprint person was just someone who ran blueprints for all of these set designers. And they would learn from looking at the drawings and, being around other people who were drafting things. So nowadays, the beginning level or kind of the bottom is a set designer. Really, it's somebody who is able to do architectural drawings. Now it's mostly digital. Um, People use various programs, SketchUp and Rhino and Maya and AutoCAD and all these different programs. And they're the ones who really do a lot of the design work. Um, they're overseen by assistant art directors and art directors, which are the next levels up. Some people come in as an assistant or even an art director and don't have the background as a set designer or a draftsman. But I always think it's really important to have that foundation and that skill, because later on you're going to be asked to read drawings and to interface with the construction department and various other departments. And if you can't read a drawing, then you're kind of at a loss. So the next level, art director or assistant, there's some flexibility there. Art directors normally supervise like all the people who are in the art department. They kind of run the art department. There's an art department coordinator, is kind of a secretarial type job. There are graphics people who get hired who do things for signage and book covers and record jackets and just all kinds of graphic work. And then art directors are people who really interface with all the other departments, the construction department, the paint department, the picture vehicles, locations sometimes, special effects, just all the different groups that are there, costumes. But then the production designer is really overseeing all of that. And when people ask me what I do as a production designer, my shorter answer is when you watch a film or a television series, everything that you see on the screen that is not a costume or an actor, I probably had something to do with choosing it, designing it, or influencing it in some way. So we, as a production designer, you will go with the director and you will scout locations because not everything gets built. Sometimes you're in a situation where you can use existing locations. And when we did House of Cards, we used a lot of existing locations in and around Baltimore. That doubled for Washington, D.C. Very beautiful, majestic buildings that would cost too much to duplicate from scratch. So you start out with doing a lot of location work. You kind of set the tone for the feeling of the show, the kind of the emotional depth of the show, the palette, whether it's dark and gloomy, or if it's a comedy, it's bright and cheerful, and you kind of control that part of it, working with the director. A lot of times, like with David Fincher, he has very, very specific ideas, and he has a very specific kind of look and feel that he likes to use, and a certain palette that we tend to use when I work with him. But I supervise all the people in the art department, and I'm very hands-on with construction because I have a background in that. And the painters, I was a scenic painter when I was in theater, so I do a lot of supervising of those craft people who do that.
So for all three of those positions, like on set, after you've set the stage, so to speak, and everything is where it's supposed to be, and you step back and the people start acting, what's your job? To just start working on the next one, or are there any additional responsibilities like once the set is constructed?
There are always things that come up. There are always changes. There are always, additions. Can we change this? We've decided to rewrite this part. We're going to need a door here. We're going to need a basement that never was written into the script, or something like that. I've been very lucky since I've been designing to have a wonderful on-set dresser person who is part of the set decorating department, but he's there on the set as it's being shot. And he's kind of my eyes and ears. And if somebody comes in, particularly in television, you have multiple directors a lot of times. A director will direct 2 episodes, and then someone new will come in to do the next 2 episodes, something like that. And he will text me or he'll email me and he'll say, well, the director's asking for a lamp over here, or the DP might be. Can you direct me to what would be the appropriate one, or do you want me to make that choice, or whatever? So I've been really lucky to have somebody who is quite brilliant at watching the filming unfold and being able to make a contribution that helps the look of the film or television.
So pivoting a little bit, to get into the main topic of the day, we just want to ask how you ended up getting involved with Spider-Man in 2002.
So the designer, Neil Spizak, was someone that I had done several other films with. And he and I got along very well. And he called me. He said, I've got this show. I was on, I might have been on Unbreakable or something at that point. He said, who do you want to come in early? Because I couldn't come right then. And I recommended Tony Fanning, who was somebody that I had also worked with and knew very well, to come in and kind of work in between the time when I was going to be starting. And then I finally was done with the other show and came along, and we got started on that. And, we did scouting in New York because we did end up shooting a fair amount in New York. And starting to hire the crew. And that's another thing that the art director normally gets involved with. I might be able to be in a position to choose the construction coordinator and the painter and people like that. Or sometimes the designer will do that. But as a supervising art director, I was involved in some of that.
So I read that Sam Raimi made a lot of his own storyboards for all 3 of the movies. So did you were you able to look at those or use those for reference? And if so, how did it affect you?
In truth, Sam hires about 8 or 9 storyboard artists. And that's a lot of storyboard artists for a show. But they would all work in a room with him, and he's great with coming up with new ideas. Some of the storyboard artists also come up with ideas. And yes, we would have meetings where he would sit down with Neil and myself and the special effects department and the visual effects department and a lot of the other locations people and picture cars and all of that. We would talk about a big car chase sequence or something else. And those are the kinds of things that really get storyboarded very, very carefully because they're so complicated to shoot.
So to get into a few specific scenes, if you could talk about the sets and things like that. We'd like to start with the cage match, which is like his first, I guess, fight.
Bonesaw!
Yes. So, what was the construction? Was that a set, or was that?
That was a set. It was all built on stage over at Sony, and I think it might have been on stage 27. I can't remember. This was 20 years ago, but it was all built. There was a lot of special engineering. The bars in the cage had to be a certain softness and a certain flexibility so that they didn't, like take somebody's front teeth out or, do real physical harm. But yeah, it was a big, there was a lot of engineering that went into that where all the pieces come together and they go up and down and all the rest of that. So a lot of special effects involvement there. And I'm trying to remember what we did for extras in the crowd there. Sometimes we use, in those days, before a lot of the digital work, we would use inflatable people, which you could get, and you could put them in any costume you wanted. And they would just be populated with a mixture of real extras so that, you didn't have to have thousands of people. You could just have, a couple hundred people and make it seem like it was full.
So the next one we were curious about, speaking of scenes that may have been shot in New York, the upside down kiss and and I'm sure you had to like work with a lot of rain machines on that and what that was all about.
Yes, that was shot. I believe that was shot on the back lot at Warner Brothers. And yes, there was a lot of issues with the upside down rain getting in their nose, in their face, in their mouths, in their whatever. But yeah, that was on a back lot.
I was listening to the director's commentary, and apparently it was actually Tobey Maguire, and that they made some sort of mechanism for him to quickly like go off screen down an alley, and then he was actually the person who was upside down. And I would have always thought that it would have been either a cut or an extra, but it was a continuous shot.
Was him.
Yeah,
it was him. Yeah.
One of my favorite sets in the movie is J. Jonah Jameson's office, or like the whole of the Daily Bugle.
Yes.
Because I think it's like a wonderfully like comic booky type feel to it. And I was wondering if was what the process was on building that.
So we originally had planned on building that on stage. There was a previous script that had the Green Goblin crashing through one of the windows and flying around the Daily Bugle offices and all the rest of that. And we literally started building it, and it was based on the Flatiron Building in New York, a big triangular building that was one of the early skyscrapers way back in the, I don't know, teens or 20s or something.
I think it's the Continental in the John Wick movies.
It's been in a lot of movies. If you should happen upon my Facebook page, you will see me standing on the top edge of the Flatiron Building. And we were up there taking photographs for some big backings, some big translights that we were shooting. And Richard Lund and I had climbed up a ladder from the top floor up onto that roof. And literally, I'm standing right on the edge of it. And it's a very, very, very windy little corner right there. Somehow the wind comes through there. And it was the wintertime, so I'm all like totally bundled up and everything. But ultimately, to get back to your question, they decided to not build it on stage. And we ended up using a building downtown in Los Angeles, the Pacific Electric Building, which was kind of a very popular location. We did a bunch of Face Off inside there. It was used for many, many, many films. It had great old interior corridors, and when you were doing a police station or a office, old Sam Spade kind of thing, that's where you would go. And it has these big curved radius windows up at the top. And so when we ended up doing the Bugle, we built it into that existing space downtown, and we had to do quite a bit of work because it was an older building that had just been used for filming for many, many years. It's been turned into loft condos now, but it was. I remember the ceiling was falling apart, and we had to do a lot of retrofitting to bring it up to.
When the Green Goblin he bursts in and the wall sort of explodes, how did you explode? Did you break the real wall, or did you create a fake one?
We had fake walls, and a lot of that was sort of pieced together after the fact. Yeah.
So with some of the fully animated sequences, whether it be just like some of the various montages or like the opening or Spider-Man just swinging through the city, do you play any role in that, or is that like all visual effects if there aren't tactile like props and stuff?
It's probably mostly visual effects. I think when we were in the high school cafeteria, and there were some shooting of webs and things like that, as I recall, there were some special effect things, some practical things that were rigged to fly around and to get snapped and things like that. But generally, if it would have been something that the art department was involved with, then maybe Neil, as the designer, might have, they might have come to him and said, we need something to do this or move or whatever. But I can't recall right now anything specifically. That all that stuff with the stuff in Times Square where the balcony collapses and all of that was all built in with hydraulics and a lot of real engineered elements and planned and practiced and all of that.
Yeah, like Trent, I also listened to the commentary track beforehand, and with Sam Raimi, and he talked a lot about how lots of New York is sort of stitched together with fake elements. That balcony doesn't exist, but it has to look like it's part of Times Square. And we were wondering, especially around 2002, there was a big VFX boom. And so we were wondering, when you have to get all these elements together, does that make your job more difficult when you have to coordinate with fake backgrounds and different things shot at different places, like the Times Square thing or the ending battle on the bridge?
I don't know that it makes it more difficult. I mean, it requires a lot of planning. So shooting, we had originally planned on shooting quite a bit in Times Square. Shooting in Times Square is really, really hard. And 20 years ago, it was still hard. It's so busy. There's so many people. It's so hard to control everything. So we ended up building a mock-up of Times Square in full size in this giant parking lot down in Downey, where a lot of other films work, because it's just this nice, big, flat, empty space. And we built the bottom story of basically all the shops and all the buildings around Times Square. And then the top of all of that was extended with visual effects. And we could make Times Square the way we wanted it to be, to match, as you said, the big hotel with the balcony and things like that. That was, something that we could then manipulate and make it our own, basically.
So I think the bridge fight, I'm just curious about how that was, if that was primarily green screen, if you guys were actually on the top of a bridge at any point.
That was primarily green screen. We built a portion of the bridge on stage, like the elements of the structure of it, and then it was all green screen primarily.
Trent, do you want to move on to David Fincher?
Yeah, I think it's approximately Fincher o'clock. Yeah, pop the question.
Okay,
Wonderful. Thank you for talking about Spider-Man, but
sure.
you've worked with a few of our favorite directors, one of them being David Fincher, who you mentioned previously. And we were wondering, on your IMDb, it says you started working with him for reshoots for Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Yes.
And then you worked on House of Cards and Mindhunter. And we were wondering, what's it like working with the man, and how did that relationship evolve?
It's very interesting. I had got a call that they needed somebody to come over and help out, and I had started designing at that point, but I didn't have a job designing anything, and so I said, "Okay, I'll come over and art direct." And they said, "Oh yeah, I knew the other art director there," and they were doing quite a bit. It was a fairly extensive reshoot. They rebuilt the little house, the little cabin where they hide out, and you know the the dock with the boat and the hillside, and they built a lot of stuff, and but it was an eye-opening experience to get thrown into the middle. Um, and they Don Burt, who was the production designer who works with David primarily with films that he does, he took me aside one day and he said, David wants you to see if you can come up with a scenario for this whole evidence wall that is in the little house. And they tried it a couple of different ways and shot things that David didn't feel were very successful. And so I put together a couple of versions, a couple of three different options, and then I'd only been there like 2 or 3 days, and then Don Burt said, "Well, I'm going to have you go in by yourself with David. Is that all right? Will you be okay if I'm not there?" And I thought about it for a second, and I was like, "Yeah, I guess I'll figure it out." And then I went in and I showed him 3 things. He picked one of them, and then not too much later, Don Burt pulled me aside and he said, "David really likes you."
That's high praise.
From the man himself.
and so, we hit it off. We're both super perfectionist type people. I mean, meticulous to a fault. And I totally get him. And I love working with him because, he makes you better. He makes you do your best. And he's tough. He's a tough guy, but he knows everything about everybody's job. He knows everybody's job better than they do. And there's nothing about technology or cameras that he does not know. He's on the cutting edge of all of that, lenses. And he was a photographer years ago, and you can see it in his work. Every frame on a film is a photograph, really, and there's nothing left to chance. Nothing is on the set that shouldn't be there. There's a reason for it. It's got some logic involved, and I love working with him. he's the best, and I've worked with many.
I'm a huge Mindhunter fan, and I just
Yes.
wanted to ask, because obviously that's a show that's sort of set in the past.
Hmm.
How much of your production design on that was influenced by the real life, like FBI offices and jail cells, and how much of that was sort of artistic and creative freedom, or what was the push and pull with that?
So we were fortunate enough. The series Mindhunter is based on the book by John Douglas, and he's a still very I guess he's still alive. He's quite old, but he was when we started the show, and he's part of the show, like a producer, or executive producer, something like that. Um, and because he's so well liked, we were able to go to Quantico. Uh, David, myself, Don Burke came with us because he was kind of transitioning along with us, and Josh Donnan and all the producer types. And they gave us like a backstage tour of Quantico. We got to go places where you would never get to go. And we went in the classrooms, and we went through all of that. And I'll have to say, we copied most of all of that FBI stuff as closely as we could possibly. I'm a stickler for period things, and because I'm an old guy, I kind of know all that 70s stuff. I was alive during it. I went through it. I was there.
You survived
So
it.
yes. So so that was something that we could really um, you know focus in on the reality of it all. But many times, and going into the show, David had said he didn't want to do. He said, "This is 70s. This is the period." He didn't want to do Boogie Nights.
Mm.
He didn't want to do this over the top. Oh, we're in the 70s, so we're going to do every 70s cliche that you ever seen. He wanted it to be the real 70s, sort of the mundane, everyday. These people are not special. They don't have like the top of the line, um, sorry, furniture and all the, stuff. It had to be real and have a reality about it. So, and shooting in a place like Pittsburgh, which has many small towns around and things like that that are caught in the past. So it was very easy to come up with a lot of the props and the furniture and the vehicles and all that stuff was there.
So for Dragon Tattoo and Night at the Museum, you did exclusively reshoots, and we were wondering, outside of proximity, no, outside of length, are there any major difference when you compare reshoots to like the main production?
Um, there's not a whole lot of difference, but uh, reshoots, many times you already know uh, either what went wrong, so you are correcting something that you're trying to fix, or you've been in the project for a while, and you have the depth of understanding that it's not just picking up the script for the first time. Uh, Many times there's changes. I'm working right now on some reshoots for a series I did up in Vancouver. Um, and they had a sequence that they thought, I think they felt at the time it was too expensive or too elaborate or too complicated. And so they went another way when they finished the series. And now Netflix has decided, that idea that you originally had, let's see how that works. So we're going back to kind of square one again. And I'm designing a bunch of things that I had originally designed, but were kind of thrown away because we decided that they couldn't afford it, didn't want to, or whatever. So yeah, you have a little more insight maybe in reshoots.
So, moving along to another movie that you've worked on, you were an assistant art director on Forrest Gump, and we were wondering how'd you get involved with that? What was that like? And anything you could say on that.
Yeah, that was a fantastic experience. We, I had worked with the art director. We had done, Leslie McDonald was the art director, and we had done together a couple of other films with Dennis Gassner, the designer who's been doing a lot of the Bond films lately. And so she knew me, and she brought me along, and I had a fantastic time. The Gump house, we designed and built that because we looked and looked and looked at various locations around in the South and never found something that was quite right. And the whole business with Run Forest Run. So one of the reasons that we picked the location where we built that house was the driveway with the big trees. There are these big old oak trees, and there's Spanish moss in them, and they're beautiful. And so that particular location was a very large, I think it was 3,000 acres, piece of land that had been a plantation at one point. And we ended up shooting not only the house there, but Jenny's farm, which was a little, it was actually a true slave shack that was on the property that we moved into the middle of the field. And then we planted the crops. We planted the tobacco, the cotton. We planted all that from seed. And I was there with the agriculture agent or whatever he was. And I was there to supervise, and also a couple of other locations were on that same piece of property. A lot of the Vietnam stuff was there. And also the large tree that as children, they play under the tree. And then in the end, Jenny gets buried under the tree. That was on the land. And so I was kind of in charge of that whole world of Forrest's house and Jenny's farm and all of that. And I went there every day for like 4 or 5 months, where while we built that house, that house was finished inside and out. It was air conditioned, insulated. It had real brick fireplaces. And originally they had thought they would shoot some of that on stage, the upstairs part, where Sally Field dies and, Jenny dies and all that. And then Bob Zemeckis was like, even though we built it all on stage, is like, we really want to see out the window. Let's just finish the inside of the upstairs of the house that we built on location. So, and one interesting note, it's a small note. There were 2 big magnolia trees on either side of an empty space right by the river where there had been a house. And I don't know if it burned during the Civil War or what, but the house was no longer there. And we went out one day with the director, and we had some story poles, and we had some elements that we could hold up and kind of move around and decide where we were going to put the house when we built it. And we finally decided on, okay, this is where we'd like it. It is overlooking the river. It's this far from the road. It's all of that. And months later, we had built the whole house, and I had hired a mason, a brick mason, to come in and do some the stairs and the fireplace and things like that. And we start digging down in front of the porch, and we dig into the dirt, and we find the bricks from the original stair from the house that had been there, I don't know, 100 years before, or how many years before. And it was quite amazing that it was exactly the same spot.
So for Forrest Gump, like you just described, was your entire responsibility like you never left the farm? Because I'm sure that the production, like it had a bunch of other locations, but is that a thing where sometimes your role is just to stay in one spot and focus on the crops growing and stuff?
Yes, and that particular location was quite a ways away. It was close to an hour away from Beaufort, which is where we were all living and our offices were. And we had a couple of other assistant art directors. One guy, Jim Fang, who did the jungle Vietnam part, which was on Fripp Island and a couple of other areas down in there. And then Tony did the Savannah part, which was basically the park bench and things like that.
So the next movie I wanted to ask you about was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and we were wondering if you had any relationship with the book prior, or if you used the Ralph Steadman illustrations for influence, and anything you could say.
That's a very interesting project. I didn't start that project. There was another art director
But you
who
finished it.
who left the project, and Alex McDowell. I was friends with Nancy Haig, who was the decorator on that show, and she told Alex that he needed to hire me, and so I got called on like a Friday, I think it was, and I met Alex, and he said, "We're going to Las Vegas. I fly out there on Sunday. The Teamster picks me up at the airport with my suitcase. He drives me to downtown Las Vegas, and I'm dropped off with my suitcase on the sidewalk, and I'm introduced to Terry Gilliam.
Wow.
And Terry says, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here. Here's what I need." And he gave me this whole list of things, and I ran around and, got things going. It was one of those projects that was fraught with a lot of. I don't know if you are familiar with Lost in La Mancha, the doc about another Terry Gilliam film that is just classic. There's a lot of chaos and a lot of things go wrong.
Is
And
that
if
the
you-
Don Quixote
Yes.
documentary?
And if you've never seen it, they screened it at LACMA years ago, and Terry was there, and he had lost control of the film, and he was trying to get the rights back, and he was pleading with anybody to try to help him get it back. But yeah, if you've never seen it, it's a classic. What can go wrong with a project?
So another picture you've worked on that's one of my dad's favorites. One of my dad's favorite movies is Get Shorty, and yeah, any Barry Sonnenfeld stories would be welcome. Anything about it, really.
A very, very interesting note on that. So I had worked with a decorator in Chicago. It was a New York decorator who knew the designer, and the designer was a New Yorker and had not really worked in California and needed an art director. And so Leslie suggested that Peter call me, and we hit it off. He was an old-time theater designer, and but just a strange little note about that was Barry Sonnenfeld was one of a long list of possible directors for Forrest Gump.
Really?
believe it or don't.
Wow.
And somewhere along the line, he was, this is a, apocryphal story. I don't know if this is true, but he was like at an airport uh, gift shop and picked up a book, Get Shorty. And he read it and he's like, this is the movie I want to make. And somehow he left the project and instead of doing Forrest Gump, he did Get Shorty um, several years later. And fortunately, Zemeckis did Forrest Gump because
I guess we got two great movies out of it.
he was the right guy for it. Yeah.
So, you were uncredited as a set designer on Wayne's World 2, and we were wondering what that was all about. And also, I watched a video about all the Wayne's World production designer talking about all the wacky gadgets they had to make for that movie. So it seems like it would be a very zany set to design for.
So again, we all know each other in the business, kind of. That's kind of a small circle of people. I was very good friends with the art director on that show, and I was waiting. I'm trying to go back and think now because I don't have my chronology probably exactly right, but I was waiting for. It might have been Forrest Gump. It might have been Hudsucker Proxy. I think it was Forrest Gump. I knew I was going to get this job, but it wasn't going to start for like 2 months or something. And so when Rich Toyon called me, he said, would you come and draw for a while? I went in and was a draftsman on Wayne's World. And I think I drew this huge sort of warehouse kind of set. That's about all I remember because I was never there when they were shooting. I left long before it was even built. I think I just came in, worked for a few weeks or maybe a month and a half or something like that, and finished the set, and then went on to do the next film. That happens sometimes.
So you worked again, another one of my favorite directors, Steven Soderbergh. You worked on Solaris.
Yes.
And yeah, any stories from that would be
an amazing project. Steven is so involved because he really does operate the camera. I mean, he really is the guy who shoots the film. And so I'd come off of another project, and I knew the art director, and he said, well, we need another art director. And I knew the designer, Phil. So I went in, and because it was all futuristic, it was all space related, I think we ended up getting a lot more money from the initial budget than you would ordinarily get on a movie that size, because we built an amazing number of futuristic sets for that, and I think they turned out looking beautifully. So yeah, it was very construction intensive.
Can you? I just out of curiosity, like Steven Soderbergh's like process on set, is he like a lot of takes guy? Is he a few takes guy? Somewhere in between?
I was not on the set as much as sometimes I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like as I've gotten higher and higher in the hierarchy, sometimes I end up spending less time on sets, particularly when I'm doing television series and things like that, because you're always trying to jump ahead to the next episodes or whatever. But no, I don't think he's like Fincher, where he does many, many takes. But I think he knows what he wants, and a lot of times it's up to the actors, and he had very good actors. So you don't necessarily need a lot of takes.
I was just gonna ask, just because you brought up Fincher, because he's kind of such a perfectionist, and like you said, you are as well. When you're on set, does that, like, spending all that time, do you start like on set changing things? I mean, I guess you just said that you spend less time on set, but just wondering.
I I watch I watch it all very, very carefully, and as I said, I was very lucky to have this on-set dresser, Nikolai Levekis, who would be my eyes and uh, visually steer the ship. But but I still am the guy who will walk on, and I will see that little thing that you're. I'm always shocked and amazed that the camera guy didn't see it, the director didn't see it. This isn't with Fincher. Fincher sees everything, but
All
uh,
knowing.
and most other people, I'm like, what's that? What's that little thing sticking out over there that shouldn't be there? Or why is that picture crooked? Or why didn't they turn the lampshade around so that we're just not seeing this big dark seam? I just am. I'm a very visual person, and I'm always. It sort of drives people crazy a little bit, but it's what I do.
So this is sort of a general question, but let's say you're tasked with like decorating a living room. Is there like a massive prop house that you're gonna walk into and say I want that, that, and that, or are you gonna like go out to like or go out to like antique stores and try to find a specific lamp, or do you just write down on a piece of paper like I want a red lamp, someone else go find one?
So, what we didn't talk about, and what is a very, very important part of the art department, is the set decorating department. So, set decorators are more than like interior designers. They are people who handle all the elements that maybe are not construction. Um, Usually, all the furniture, all the drapery, all the carpet, all the small things, the tchotchkes, the lamps, the lighting, all of that kind of stuff. They are tasked with finding all of that, and they normally have buyers that work with them, and they supervise a crew of people who come in and set everything up. Sometimes, if you're doing the White House, the Oval Office, or something like that, um, maybe those things are out there to rent. The bust of Lincoln, and all of these kind of faux Remington sculptures and uh, historical elements that are in a place like that. Um, but a lot of times you have to find things. As I said, in Pittsburgh, it was kind of a really great place to find stuff from the 70s, to find that great furniture or that fantastic lamp or an old cigarette machine or a jute box or something like that. That stuff was very easily gettable there, and normally how it works is the decorator will bring photographs to me, and we'll discuss the general vibe or the feel that a particular set should have. Are they uh, blue collar? Is it very sophisticated? Whatever. Normally that's apparent in the script. And then they'll bring me photographs or send me photographs of this is a couch or several sofas that I like. Here's a couple of chairs that go with that. This is the drapery fabric I like. Do you think this is the right color scheme? They'll go back and forth, and we work together on it. Some of them are much more independent and have a very strong idea themselves. Other times, I'll be more involved and say, this is exactly what I want. Can you find me some more of these hanging fixtures that look like this?
That's great. So I guess we'll just ask about one more movie, and then Trent, you want to ask the big question?
Indeed.
So, last movie we want to talk about is Face Off, directed by John Woo.
Yes.
What was that like?
So that was a lot of fun. It was the first time I had worked with Neil Spizak, who was the designer on that. We had both graduated from the same university, and so we knew some people in common. And I was just finishing a film in Toronto, The Long Kiss Goodnight.
Rennie Harlin.
Rennie Harlin and Gina Davis and Sam Raimi or Samuel L. Jackson, I mean, and I got a call. Can you come to California? I'm doing this big John Woo movie, and so I came down, and yeah, that was a fun one. You know, we did this whole big prison thing, and we got to go to an oil platform off the coast, just up the bay here, and again, the building that I was talking about downtown that we used to use it for shooting a lot, the Pacific Electric building. We built that whole sort of penthouse, fancy big apartment interior thing there, and with John Woo, a lot of shootouts, a lot of big,
awesome action,
elaborate stuff. Yeah.
Action. Trent, you want to ask the big kahuna?
So the big kahuna, as Parth has built up, is what's the last great film you've watched? And it could be a first viewing or a rewatch, but something that really hit home.
It can also be TV.
Last great film I've watched. I'm an old film buff.
Sure.
I really do like, I don't know how many times I've watched The Maltese Falcon, or Casablanca, or any of that old stuff. I still enjoy it. There's sort of a gem out there that I hadn't seen in a long time, but I think it's a really, really interesting and a great film. And that's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Classic movie.
It's a classic oldie.
But a goodie.
But Gregory Peck and those kids, it's just a really, it's a message movie. It's black and white. It's right at the point when they stopped kind of making black and white movies and started making more like what we have today. But that, and I hadn't seen this. I'm going to do two here just
Please.
because I hadn't seen this in a long, long time. And a friend of mine, a younger person who had never seen it, and I said, "You have to see this movie, Chinatown."
Yeah, Roman Polanski.
It's a classic. It's just
Robert Towne.
I know it's considered like one of the few perfect movies, like up there with Back to the Future and stuff, just in terms of like plot efficiency.
Yeah. Yep. And it looks great. It's it's well designed, and yeah. And just if you're not aware, David Fincher is working on, and I believe it's with Robert Towne, a prequel to Chinatown.
Oh heavens!
Oh my God!
This is quite an announcement to make.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not announcing it because it's out there. You can find info on it, but it's been in the works for a little while, and it's something that's we're looking forward to seeing what happens with it.
Well, yeah, I think that sounds like a logical conclusion. And thank you so much, Steve Arnold, for coming on.
Very welcome.
He's worked on, Spider-Man and Unbreakable and Forrest Gump and Fear and Loathing and a bunch of other stuff you've heard of. Thanks so much. We appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Trent.
Parth.
Was that a good interview?
One of the best, dare I say.
Yeah, I think 2021 we've been getting some pretty cool people.
Is this season 2 officially?
I guess. How do you measure seasons on a podcast?
I kind of considered the end of season 1 to be, the start of the new calendar year.
Okay. That's fair.
But as I'm sure our listeners may have noticed, the start of the year was very female guest dominated, which was very nice.
It was.
Because during the origins of the show, there was accidentally too many men in a row, and we were like...
Too many white men taking control, much like this podcast.
We were like, ironically, this is very reflective of the film industry, but we're glad we could change it up. But Steve Arnold is a white guy, and that's great. So are some of us on this podcast. Well, Parth, want to tease out what comes next? Did we interview someone recently, someone who wrote a movie?
I think we should keep the surprise of which movie and which writer, but let's just say it might star somebody who you might see on a Weekend Update.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I'm not saying.
It's the first screenwriter guest we've had on the show. So, beside all the jokes, we're actually pretty excited.
Yeah. So, are we? What are we doing next week?
Oh, next week we're discussing Sam Raimi's 2002 Spider-Man with our friend and film school rival, Alex
Friend
Lane.
is a strong word, okay?
Yeah, do you want to insult Alex on mic now, or do you want to save it for next week?
I'll give one insult. Are you
Please.
Ready?
Yeah.
He's so smelly. Actually, let me give 2.
Sure.
Alex Lane? More like Alex Lame.
Do you think Alex listens to the show?
Definitely not. Definitely not.
And neither should you.
Neither should you. That's why we're canceling the podcast.
Remember that interview we just said that we had? We're just gonna dump it in the digital archives, never to be seen again.
Sorry, guys. We would have liked for you to have seen it or heard it. I guess.
I hate to cancel the show during Spider-Man week, but
I guess it's not happening.
Bummer.
Sorry, Alex Lame.
Mary redeemed a $50,000 cash prize playing Chumba Casino this year.
I was only playing for fun, so winning this was a dream come true.
Chumba Casino is America's #1 social casino experience. It's serious fun. With over 80 casino-style games to choose from, you too could win life-changing amounts of cash. Be like Mary. Log on to ChumbaCasino.com and give them a whirl. That's ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. The voice in the preceding commercial was not the actual voice of a winner.